Welcome to Prajna Sparks, a podcast where we listen to a Dharma teaching, contemplate through conversation and song, and engage in guided meditation. In this episode, we go beyond healing and transformation to transcend dualistic mind altogether.
A framework that's often used for understanding the full scope of Buddhist practice consists of four notions about healing. First, that the Buddha is like the consummate physician. The Dharma is like the medicine or the course of treatment. We ourselves are like the patient coming to the Buddha for help in treating the illness. And lastly, the illness itself is this cycle of birth, aging, illness, and death, driven by kleshas, emotions that disturb mind's natural tranquility, which drive us to act under their intentionality, which is called karma, which in turn yields any number of different varieties of pain, loss, discomfort, discontent, anxiety, stress, lack of fulfillment, all of it called dukkha. Particularly when we're looking at this way of understanding Buddhist spiritual practice as healing, transforming, and transcending, as we've been doing in the series of 3 episodes and 59 days of healing over the last few months, there's a very obvious parallel to these four notions. Healing dualistic mind is what spiritual practice does to cleanse and treat the wounds that dualistic perception has already inflicted on our mind. It's a process of healing habits that do not serve us and even actively harm. As we've seen over the last several months, that dualistic mind, which we take for granted as the only way we can be, is actually working a violence on mind's natural tranquility, radiance, and lucidity. We can all connect with that sense of intuition or knowing that there's something more than our immediate experience of our mind, of the world, and so on. Healing dualistic mind is that process of Buddhist practice that allows us to address the unrest that dualistic perception has already caused throughout this life and from a Buddhist perspective throughout lives without number before this one. One way to get our heads around that, if we're not quite sure about karma and rebirth, is to imagine our mind as a stream, a continuum that's been handed down one after another to a series of beings. We are the current recipient. We've inherited this mind stream with all the kleshas, karma, and dukkha ready to ripen. Everything we do will help to cleanse and treat that mind stream, or not, so that we bequeath it to the next being in this generational stream of mind in whatever condition we leave it. In this view, we are stewards of this mind that we call me. In the United States, certain indigenous peoples of this land are said to have made decisions about their society, their culture, their use of the land, and so forth, with a view towards how it would impact 7 generations of peoples down the road. We can think of Buddhist practice, particularly when it comes to healing, as working with our mind, cultivating it, beautifying it, not only for our immediate benefit, not only for the benefit of those around us in this life, or those who come after us temporarily, or for human flourishing in general, but very specifically so that we can pass it down to those in this stream of mind that we would call me, 7 generations down, at least that far out, providing a mind stream that is poised, primed, and eager to encounter the Dharma and continue rising up through healing to transforming and ultimately even transcending the dualistic habit. If healing allows us to address the harms that are already present, another thing that Buddhist practice does is transform. This helps us to prevent creating new harms based on dualistic perception. The transformation is one of our attitude, our perspective, our engagement with life. There's still this undertow of dualistic habituation, but what healing has done is not only ease the injury already felt, but make it clear that the situation is not quite right. Healing identifies the diagnosis, dualistic mind, as something for us to address. Transformation starts to happen right alongside the healing in any of the various ways that Buddhist practice enacts the teachings and the various lineages and heritages of Buddhism throughout Asia, the Americas, Europe, and so forth, through the kindness of practitioners, teachers, and realized masters. Transforming is retraining dualistic perception so that the treatment we've been able to effect in the healing stages doesn't just disintegrate. If we heal, but then harm ourselves again, we never catch up. Transformation is that process whereby, as we heal, we transform and actually meet experience with a more open, multidimensional understanding, a panoramic perspective that drops our biases and opens to more than we ever imagined. This panoramic perspective does not tie us to the harm that dualistic mind imposes on us. Part of that transformation is organic. Simply the purifying of the habit in the healing stage itself brings a more dynamic character to our engagement with life. It also often brings us more dimensionality, even when it comes to sensory experiences, pleasure, pain, all of the different things that we take for granted in life. I often like to think of this as that part of the Wizard of Oz where everything goes from black and white to color. We're still perceiving things dualistically, but there's so much more to it, more texture, more dimension, a whole layer of experience we didn't even imagine. What's happening is the practice is building character. Our hearts are softening, so we don't have to arm ourselves against experiences that feel unpleasant or scary. We can hold the paradox of fear and creativity, rage and love, vulnerability and courage, allowing all of the various contradictions to coexist as they are. It may or may not be peaceful. That's not the point. What it is true. We're owning the full range of our experience. No need for pretense, no need to downplay, deny, or overdramatize anything. We can be with our experience just as it is, because this transformed perspective, this richer way of encountering life, is capacious enough, bodacious enough to allow for all of it. The more we transform, the more it's visible in our life becomes fuller. It may not change a lot in the details. We may not be any richer. We may even be quite poor when it comes to financial considerations. We may not have a lot of external differences. And yet, there's more flourishing in our well-being, our response to whatever situations there are, and less knee-jerk reactivity than we've experienced before. The more we transform, the more this becomes second nature. It's almost like we're installing a new operating system for our life, with the Buddhist teachings as the view that runs the show. Out of that space, we can be of more assistance to those we contact, we can embrace our experience as it is, and we can be with the discomfort of others as well as ourselves. This is a truly beautiful way to live. Surely, that's enough. What else can there be? Let's see what the Buddha has to say about it. Mind is burning. Ideas are burning. Consciousness is burning. Sense contact is burning. Whatever is felt as pleasant, painful, or neither pleasant nor painful is also burning. Burning with what? Burning with the fire of attachment, burning with the fire of aggression, burning with the fire of apathy. I say it is burning with birth, aging, and death, with sorrow, with lamentation, with pain, with grief, with despair. This is the suffering of samsara, of being caught in dualistic perception. In a word, samsara is tragic. Once we've healed from the harms that dualistic mind has worked on us throughout samsara and transformed our view to respond creatively on the spot to whatever arises, if we're careful and examine, we find that we're still entangled in misperception. Our experience is ablaze with not knowing the true nature of things, and worse, misknowing the true nature of things. Especially for those of us with the privilege of having home, food, clothing, and sufficient financial resources to enjoy ourselves, it can feel very easy to stop at healing and transforming, to be content with a good life and human flourishing, rather than to keep listening to the Buddha, reading even between the lines, this ultimately skilled physician. It's easy to say, you know what, I'm good. I'm not experiencing any of the major symptoms. I'm okay. But that's like having the Buddha hand us a cure for cancer and saying, I'm going to leave it in the medicine cabinet. Or maybe we take it out once in a while to clean out a paper cut, even if our body is burning with cancer. This is far less than what the Buddha wants for us. With the Buddha's wise, fearless love, he wants nothing less for us than all there is, than all we are. The Buddha, from the very first moment of healing, is encouraging us to rise up to our true nature, our awakened heart, our own Buddhahood, to the extent that we are utterly free of samsara altogether without ever falling back. No calamity comes to destroy all of the healing and transformation we have done. All of the care we've put into this mind stream doesn't fall apart, and the next generation or the next 7 generations down the road benefit from our care, our stewardship, our cultivation of this mind. This can seem heavy. Why is that? Dualistic mind really likes things to stay the way they are. It's all about the status quo, and making anything else seem heavy or superstitious or out of reach or foolish or anything else is a great way of ensuring the status quo. So is making anything else seem metaphysical, unrealistic, a thing of cultural baggage. These are all fabulous tools for dualistic mind. They are finely honed and ready in the quiver of dualistic perception. But when we're actually in the midst of healing and transforming, what happens is we feel it. The positivity that healing and transforming generates, that spiritual practice creates, fuels a momentum that carries us onward with joy. The yearning to be free grows, and it calls us ceaselessly. When we hear the Buddha speaking about everything burning, we know, we can feel what he's saying. It's not just words on a page. It's not just something we're told to believe. It's our experience. The healing and transforming of dualistic mind has allowed us to silence its misperception just enough to keep going. We can feel the heat of the wonder of knowing things as they are, the warmth of Prajna in Sanskrit, Prajna, precise knowledge, mind's innate capacity to know, beckoning us forward to break out of misperception altogether. How do we do that? The sanity that comes from healing and the vitality that comes from transformation naturally lead us onward to turn towards the darkness of ignorance, as it's called in the Mahamudra teachings. This not knowing, this misknowing the true nature of things, including ourselves, our loved ones, our very lives, the world, and so much in the universe that we cannot even imagine, is still blinding us. Transcendence is what allows us to rise up above even healing, even transformation, to rise up above ignorance, to rise up above the duality of knowing or not knowing. This is an important turning point. Our practice is at the crossroads. This is where we choose either to make the best of samsara or transcend it altogether. If we continue to follow the Buddha's course of treatment, the practice and the teachings fill us with aspiration, direction, and fearlessness. The Buddha teaches us to see in these practices harness mind's innate knowing, nourishing and growing it until it is able to transcend all that is dualistic. The darkness of ignorance and even the light of prajna that counteracts it ablaze like 1,000 glorious suns, all dualistic perception incinerated, never to return. What's left is jnana, gnosis, non-dual wisdom. This is transcendence, enlightenment, overturning the misperception of samsara to find that all along its very essence has been nirvana, and manifesting this true nature, our awakening, our own Buddha nature. We are in turn able to call to all beings with whom we have a connection, those we know in this life and love dearly, those we have lost, and those we have no inkling we ever had any connection to, and that are nevertheless are part of this intricate fabric of relationship, this whole cloth of our connection to all that lives, which is what we are. It may seem like a lot for us right now. This habit of dualistic mind wants us to stick with what we know, what we can see or hear or measure, making samsara great again, rather than heeding the Buddha's call to overturn it altogether. The temptation of that habit is great. Our Buddha nature is greater. Every moment of our life is a pivot. Moment by moment, we can choose enlightenment over self-imposed limitation, smallness, and gloom. And it's not just something we do once and never again, or lose the opportunity. There are no mistakes. There are no missed opportunities. We can choose it again and again, as many times as we need to. Our life, the trajectory of this mind, now and in the future generations of beings who will inherit this mind, are transformed and healed and ultimately transcend even this mind stream. This very mind stream that we now have in our hands, in our stewardship. No need to be overwhelmed. We do what we can, healing the mind, transforming the mind. And little by little, we move closer to that transcendence. With each act, each aspiration, each life, we rise up to claim our birthright, our purpose, our true nature, the infinite knowledge, compassion, and power to benefit ourselves and all beings without limit. Our Buddha nature, our true being. This is transcendence. This is awakening. Rise up and claim it.
Oh my goodness. That was gorgeous. I feel so moved by your description of transcendence. Whew. It reminds me that in my field of psychology, historically, we've often focused on disorders and looking at sort of just getting people to the point of not having disordered experiences. There's aspects of psychology, positive psychology in particular, that look at something beyond that. Looking at resilience is one thing, saying, after adversity, we can bounce back. But there's also this concept of thriving, where following adversity, people may even have a higher level of functioning. And I'm hearing you really talk about this potential here within the damage that's been done by dualistic mind, that not only can we get to a point of not having damage, but that we can really go beyond that. And I find that so encouraging and also so aligned with what I know from psychology, that sometimes that very experience of adversity can help us to find that route to thriving.
Yeah, I love it when science and psychology and all these modern ologies finally catch up to the Buddha from 2,500 years ago. What you're describing is basically this process of transforming, not just healing harm, but shifting our outlook to a more open-ended view that's more, to use the same term, positive, rather than harping on shortcomings. This is still within the realm of transforming. This is still samsaric.
Indeed, psychology does not get us all the way there. I think that it gets us to a point of maybe having, like you talked about, getting glimpses into what's possible that helps to motivate us to move forward.
The beauty of all of the things within samsara is that their essence is nirvana. So even though they're not nirvana, they're still pointing us to nirvana. They can't help it, at least when they're on the right track. And even when they're skewed or awry, their essence is still nirvana. The act of healing and transforming dualistic mind, in addition to all the things we talked about, allows us to use things like psychology, art, music, all of the various things that are so beautiful in our life, not only for sensory pleasure, not only for lots of depth of enjoyment, but for transcendence as well. They don't have the way to transcendence, but they can be part of the way to transcendence.
And all of these different tools that we have available, I think, are wonderful, that can help us get maybe part of the way there. And one of the tools that I often draw on, in addition to psychology, is, of course, Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yes, Tania.
There's a speech that Buffy gives that I have adapted for so many different purposes. I feel like I end most of my talks that I give with this because I find it so uplifting and also a way of thinking about the challenge, as you talked about, that it takes some fearlessness to really move forward into transcendence. I thought I would share this speech with you now. And spoiler alert for Buffy the Vampire Slayer season 7. In season 7, at the end, Buffy is rallying the potential slayers. These are women who have what it takes to be a slayer, but whose powers have been limited by the rule that there can be only one slayer at a time. And so I've adapted Buffy's speech a little bit for our topic. And it goes like this. Here's the part where you make a choice. What if you could have that power now? In every generation, one Buddha is born because dualistic mind made up that rule. So I say we challenge the misperception because Buddha nature is our nature. From now on, every being in the world who might be enlightened will be enlightened. Every being who could have the power will have the power, can rise up, will rise up. Buddhas, every one of us. Make your choice. Are you ready to be free?
You've finally gotten me to enjoy Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I have accomplished my goal. That said, I want to share with the listeners that Heather and I are transitioning out of the podcast. We each have other creative projects we're engaged in. And so, as wonderful as this has been, I'm going to embrace impermanence and shift out of this particular relationship with Prajna Sparks. Yeshe, collaborating on this project has been a tremendously rich experience for me. We released the first episode of Prajna Sparks back in July 2020, just a few months into the pandemic. Because you and Zopa had started teaching remotely, I was able to attend a retreat, and I was so struck by your wisdom and skillfulness that I wanted more people to hear you. I feel like I have accomplished that, and I got so much more than that out of listening to your teachings, engaging in Zopa's meditations, reflecting through our conversations and writing lyrics, and hearing the songs in Heather's gorgeous voice. Prajna Sparks has deepened my practice and enriched my life, as I hope it does for the listeners. My heart is so full of appreciation for this opportunity. Thank you so much, Yeshe.
Thanks to you, my dearest friend. As I've told you many times, this podcast would not have happened without you. Our plates were very full during the pandemic with teaching and practice, and without your relentless optimism, joy, and sun-like radiance, I would certainly have let this idea fall to one side. But you have made it a joy, a delight, and an absolute marathon of Dharma songs in a superpower that I just don't think anybody can equal. You have such a capacity to distill the information into music and song that just lifts the heart, that I've known for a long time, but obviously we haven't had the forum to let you shine before this podcast. And I'm delighted that we had this time to lay this wonderful foundation. We will continue with Prajna Sparks in a very similar framework of listening, contemplating, and meditating, inspiring for our individual practice. And I can't think of anybody who would have turned those songs into absolute magic more than Heather Stevenson. She is so skilled. Her voice is so beautiful. And she puts such incredible love and attention into each and every one of these songs. She is the soulful heart of every episode. And I can't tell you how many times I re-listen to every one of those songs. I'm glad that we're finishing on Transcendence, because every single time I think she couldn't possibly do better than last. And she does. This is a perfect moment for her to transcend even the glory of what she has been able to do before now.
Amen. This has been Yeshe and Tania. Next, you'll hear Heather with a song, and then Zopa offering a guided meditation with Shivnee on Tibetan singing bowls. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, email us, sparks@prajnafire.com. Visit us on the web at prajnafire.com or follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at Prajna Sparks. May all beings benefit.
Rise up, heal your mind from turmoil to sanity. In mind's natural state, you'll find radiance, pure lucidity. With a panoramic view, contradictions coexist, and in a burst of technicolor hues, transform mind shines through. called. Undo samsaric view. We too can know all. Make your choice, break through. In a blaze like 1,000 suns, Prajna sears duality, interconnected, not two, not one. Enlightened mind, loving, fearless, free. Rise up, transcend. Rise up, transcend. Rise up, compassion, wisdom shining forth. Awaken, transcend. Rise up, transcend.
Hello, dear friends. Thank you so much for joining me for this meditation. When we look at transcendence, transcending, what happens when we loosen our grip on knowing, on being competent, on being right? What if reality is not what we perceive? What if reality is bigger than what we perceive? Vaster, more amazing, more wondrous than all the conceptual boxes we try to confine it in, we try to make sense of, and we get used to shutting out the riot of experience. It's so vast, life. In many ways, so unknowable, so unpin-downable. Not just the expanse of life, but each and every moment. One of my favorite quotes from the Buddha in the sutras: "Things are not as they appear, nor are they otherwise." Another way to think about this is as Yeshe describes in the commentary on the third maxim from the Lojun teachings, where she says that the maxim points us to a living practice of meditative inquiry, which opens the door to experiencing mind with decreasing conceptual constructs and projection through increasingly unmediated experience. So then the question becomes, how do we practice this? So many different ways, of course, but we'll try one right here and now. To begin, just settle. Allow yourself to arrive. Let go of thoughts, worries, anxiety, or not. It's your practice. It's your mind. You can just be here now, feeling the seat, the earth beneath you, the heavens opening above, and our body, our experience, this nexus point of practice in this moment. Allow yourself to tune in to the energetic experience here and now. Having taken our seat, we'll now do just a little shamatha, a little tranquility meditation to settle the mind. We can focus on the breath, the inflow of the inhalation, the flowing out of our exhalation. And just use this as a focal point to allow mind to come to one-pointed rest. It doesn't matter what thoughts come up or what drowsiness. Just use the breath as a reminder to come back to the present, to hone that attentive quality of mind that's not chasing, nor distracted, nor so dull it loses awareness. Find that sweet balance spot. Let's practice like this for a minute or two. In the space of settled yet sharp awareness, this finely tuned balance point of mind's clarity and its resting qualities, we'll just allow life, experience, our mind to be. The teachings often call this resting naturally. So try it. Rest naturally, open, curious, but not chasing, not rejecting, or not. It's okay. Just to let go of all techniques, to let go of even subtle concepts of how meditation should be, how we should be. Just be in your experience. Be in that spaciousness. Let it be. Don't try to hold on to it, or push it away, or understand it, or seek some transcendence elsewhere, or not seek. Just be here now. Perfect. Thank you for your practice and all that you do. As we close this meditation, please gather together any goodness that may have come of this practice, any virtue, any positive energy, and share it freely with the world. After all, this is the birthright of all beings that have minds, which is to say, all beings who seek happiness, who seek freedom from suffering. So take whatever goodness has come of this and share it freely with everyone, all beings. May they all transcend dualistic mind, transcend dualistic ways of perceiving, the ways that we limit the limitless. May it be so. Thank you.